The morning light spilled gently across the curved rooftops of Buckshananock Village, that quiet, timeless corner of Seoul where the past still lingers in the wooden walls and the scent of tea. It was late April. Cherry blossoms still swayed in the air, though most had already fallen. Inside a small tea house tucked between the narrow stone alleys, Ayu sat by the window, her fingers wrapped around a porcelain cup of green tea. She looked serene, delicate yet grounded, like a piece of the landscape itself. Her hair was loosely tied back, and a soft breeze brushed against her cheek as if spring itself had stopped to greet her. She was there for an exclusive interview, her first in months, but today's atmosphere felt different. It wasn't just about music. Though her name had once again topped charts across Asia, it was about something quieter. Something that had followed her like a soft refrain in the background, her love for Jong Suk. The journalist sitting across from her began with the expected questions: her tour, her upcoming album, her writing process. Answered thoughtfully, her words gentle, her tone steady. Every sentence seemed to hold a kind of rhythm, as if even in conversation, she was composing a song. But when the topic shifted, when his name appeared like a careful note in the air, something changed in her expression. Her eyes flickered with a light too personal to hide. "I didn't choose him because he's famous," said after a small pause, the corners of her lips lifting into a wistful smile. "I chose him because he makes silence feel like music." It was such a simple line, yet it carried a weight that silenced the entire room. For a moment, even the wind outside seemed to still. She sipped her tea before continuing, her gaze wandering toward the sunlight filtering through the paper window. "When I'm with him, I don't have to fill the space with words. It's like, even quiet moments have meaning. I think that's when I realized, this is what peace feels like." The journalist hesitated before asking, "Remember when that feeling began?" Ayu smiled, as if replaying a film in her mind. "It was at the Seoul Drama Awards, 2 years ago. I was performing that night. He was one of the presenters. I was so nervous that I didn't even notice him at first. I turned to bow. I caught his eyes, just for a second. He smiled, and it was calm. Not a big moment, but somehow, it stayed with me." She laughed softly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Didn't talk much that night. I just remember thinking, he has the kind of silence that isn't cold. It's warm. That kind of silence stays with you longer than words." The two didn't meet again for months. Their first conversation came through a simple message, a congratulations text he sent after one of her concerts. What started as short exchanges turned into late-night talks, jokes, and thoughtful notes. They began to meet quietly at a small cafe in Yeonnam-dong, where no one looked twice at two people sitting by the window. "Sometimes we just talk about random things, old books, music, even food," Ayu said. "He never tried to impress me. He listened. Really listened. And in this industry, that's rare." Her words carried a kind of nostalgia. Like she was remembering not just moments, but how those moments made her feel. "He's the kind of person who remembers what you said a month ago, even if it was small. Once, I mentioned in passing that I liked the sound of rain hitting Hannock roofs. The next week, he sent me a voice recording of it from his parents' house. I didn't even know he'd remembered." Laughter filled the room like the chime of glass in sunlight. As the conversation deepened, the journalist gently asked, "You've written so many songs about love, sometimes fragile, sometimes fierce. How is this one different?" Ayu leaned back in her chair, thoughtful. "This love doesn't need to be loud," she said. "It doesn't need grand gestures. It's just there. Every day, steady and quiet. I used to think love was supposed to feel like fireworks. But now I think, maybe it's more like candlelight, something that stays even after the noise fades." The journalist smiled. "And when did you realize you loved him?" His eyes softened, but she didn't answer right away. Looked out toward the stone path outside, where two children were chasing pedals down the street. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, honest, unguarded. "I realized it when I started missing him even when he was right beside me," she said. "That sounds strange. But it's true. I'd be sitting next to him. I'd already miss him, like I was afraid the moment would end too soon. That's when I knew." Her words hung in the air, tender and trembling. Then came the inevitable question, the one that headlines would later seize: why him? Why Jong Suk? Ayu smiled quietly. Her eyes glistened under the sunlight. and her voice barely rose above a whisper. Only he could make me feel this way, she said. Like I can be both IU and June. He never asks me to choose between them. When I'm with him, I have to perform. I just am. Her words were unpolished, rehearsed, the kind that carry truth in their imperfection. Down at her hands, then laughed softly. People think love is about finding someone perfect, she said. But it's really about finding someone who understands your imperfections and stays anyway. Outside, a breeze swept through the narrow lane. Cherry petals into the air. IU turned toward the window, her eyes following the dance of pale pink fragments drifting across the sunlight. You know, she said with a small smile. Probably tease me for sounding too sentimental right now. The journalist laughed with her. But the tone of the room had changed. It had become something sacred, fragile. The world outside was loud, full of headlines and flashing cameras, but here, in this quiet corner of Bukchin, IU's voice was the only sound that mattered. She spoke one last time, almost to herself. There's a reason some people feel like home, she said. He's one of them. As the interview ended, IU stood by the doorway, the afternoon sun outlining her silhouette against the wooden frame. She turned once more toward the garden, petals still falling like slow rain. It had gone cold, but her smile lingered, warm and alive. And somewhere beyond the rooftops of Old Seoul, where the sky met the scent of spring, felt as if the whole city exhaled, carrying her words like a love song only the heart could hear. 2 weeks had passed since that spring morning in Bukchin. The story of IU's quiet confession had already melted its way through the media. Headlines called it the softest love story of the year. Fans replayed every second of her words, only he could make me feel this way. Yet IU herself seemed untouched by the noise. He had gone to Jeju Island for a magazine shoot, trading Seoul's crowded blossoms for the island's salty air and calm horizon. Jeju was wrapped in drizzle that week. There wasn't harsh or cold, it fell in a slow rhythm, the kind that made everything feel suspended in time. IU stood under a small awning outside a seaside cafe near Iwo Beach, holding a cup of warm barley tea. She had finished her morning shoot and was watching the ocean turn silver beneath the mist. Her phone buzzed softly in her pocket. It was a message from Jong Suk. Don't forget your umbrella. I know you never carry one. She laughed to herself, shaking her head. Right, she never did. She typed back a small heart emoji. Flipped her phone away. The photographer nearby captured that exact moment, IU smiling faintly in the rain, eyes glimmering like someone who was thinking of home. The photo would later appear on the magazine's June cover. The calm before love. What no one knew was that the warmth in her eyes that day came from the quiet simplicity of a single text, from a man who always remembered the small things. Between shoots, she sat with a journalist again. This time inside the cafe, where the windows were fogged with rain. When asked how she felt after her confession had gone viral, she just smiled. I didn't say it to make news, she said softly. I said it because I wanted to be honest. I think people can feel when something is real. The journalist asked you if Jong Suk had seen the interview. IU nodded. He texted me after it aired. He said, "You're too brave." And then he added, "But that's why I fell for you." She giggled quietly, her cheeks pink with a memory. Outside, thunder rolled faintly over the sea. Sound seemed to blend perfectly with her words, gentle yet full of meaning. Her relationship with Jong Suk had always been private, so private that when the world first discovered it, fans had to look twice before believing. But for IU, privacy wasn't about hiding, it was about protecting something fragile. We both know what it's like to have our lives watched, she said. So we promised to keep some parts just for us. Out at the ocean, her reflection merging with the rain-streaked glass. Together. It's ordinary, she said. We talk about what to cook, what to watch, where to travel next. He teases me when I'm clumsy. I nag him when he forgets to eat. It's not dramatic, but that's what makes it beautiful. We're real. Her voice carried a warmth that felt like a song being written in real time. Later that week, while IU was still in Jeju, Jong Suk was in Busan for a film festival. Reporters asked him about her interview, and the question made him blush visibly on stage. He rubbed the back of his neck, laughing before answering. She always says things that make my heart race. I didn't expect her to say that publicly. But I guess that's just her. Brave, sincere, A little dangerous. The crowd laughed with him. But when he continued, tone turned softer. She makes me want to be a better person. I'm proud that she feels safe with me. That's all I ever wanted. Of that moment quickly went viral. Creating a loop of love, her confession met with his quiet reply. Fans from Korea to Thailand began trending hashtags like Lee Jong Suk reply, IU and LJS, and stay anyway. Of a new song IU had just released. The song was slow, poetic, filled with metaphors about waiting and warmth. Even when the world fades, you're the color that stays. Sang in the chorus. Fans were certain the song was about him. When asked about it during a radio show, neither confirmed nor denied. She only smiled and said, "It's about someone who reminds me that love doesn't have to be loud to be real." The next morning, Lee Jong Suk posted the song on his Instagram story with a single word, beautiful. Their love, once hidden behind careful glances and subtle gestures, had found its way into the open, not through grand declarations, but through words that carried sincerity like perfume, faint, lasting, impossible to forget. Summer approached. IU and Lee Jong Suk were spotted again together. Time walking along the shoreline of Iwo Beach. The sky was painted with pale gold as the sun began to set. IU had taken off her shoes, walking barefoot through the shallow waves, while Lee Jong Suk walked beside her, carrying both pairs in his hands. Didn't speak much, they didn't need to. The wind played with her hair, and he reached out to tuck a strand behind her ear. Someone nearby captured a photograph, IU laughing, Jong Suk looking at her as if she were the only person in the world. The photo wasn't meant for tabloids, it was too intimate, too gentle. When it appeared online, fans didn't react with frenzy this time. They simply smiled, writing comments like, "They look peaceful. And that's love when it stops being a headline and just becomes life." Back in Seoul, IU recorded a small behind-the-scenes clip for her YouTube channel. Sitting in her studio, surrounded by instruments, she reflected on the past few months. "Think love teaches you how to be softer," she said. "About who makes your heart race, but who makes your heart rest." Then she added, with a little laugh, "But sometimes, with him, it still does both." Her words, once again, found their way to headlines. But this time they felt less like gossip and more like poetry. Reporters described their relationship as a quiet revolution of affection in an industry built on image. One columnist wrote, "IU and Lee Jong Suk are proving that love doesn't have to shout to be heard." As autumn crept into the air, they were seen attending a friend's wedding together in Seoul. IU sang a soft, acoustic version of her hit song Through the Night. Lee Jong Suk watched from the audience, his eyes never leaving her. When she finished, he was the first to stand and applaud. Cameras caught a brief moment when she glanced toward him, and their eyes met, a silent exchange full of everything words could never say. By winter, both returned to their careers, preparing a new album. Lee Jong Suk filming a drama. Between their busy schedules, they still found time to disappear from the world now and then, quiet dinners, countryside trips, long phone calls on sleepless nights. An interviewer asked IU what love meant to her now. She thought for a long time before replying. "Love," she said, "isn't a feeling that stays perfect. It changes, it matures. But if you're lucky, it still makes you feel like spring, even when it's snowing outside." And when Lee Jong Suk was later asked the same question in a separate interview, he smiled and said, "Is when someone knows all your quiet parts and still stays." In the end, their story wasn't about grand romance or dramatic twists. It was about constancy, two people who had learned how to love gently in a world that demanded noise. One evening in late November, returned once again to Jeju. This time not for work but for rest. Locals spotted them walking by the sea, hand in hand, their footprints fading behind them as the tide rolled in. The wind was cold, but IU laughed freely, carried by the ocean breeze. As they stood watching the horizon, she leaned her head against his shoulder and whispered something only he could hear. He turned, smiling softly, and said, "Next time, let's not wait for spring." She nodded, her voice barely louder than the waves. Spring's already here. The sky above Jeju burned orange as the sun dipped beneath the water. And for a fleeting, golden moment, they were no longer singer and actor, celebrity and headline. They were simply IU and Lee Jong Suk, two hearts, one rhythm. the sound of forever echoing softly between them.